Every year, nature proves it's not just a pretty postcard, it's a toothy nightmare waiting to strike. Today, we're diving deep into 5 of the most disturbing deaths caused by crocodiles. Beasts that don't just lurk, they lunge. From tourist trips gone wrong to horrifying ambushes, this one's not for the faint of heart. Let's begin. This next story takes us to the wild northern reaches of Queensland, Australia, to a remote stretch of the Annan River, just outside the quiet town of Cooktown. It was meant to be a peaceful family camping trip, a break from the everyday, a moment to reconnect under open skies. But what started as an ordinary afternoon would end in unimaginable horror. On that day, 40-year-old Dr. Dave Hogban, a father of 3 and a respected GP from New South Wales, was walking with his wife and young sons along a bush trail that skirted the river. The air was warm, the sun high, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Until, without warning, the ground beneath his feet crumbled. A 5-meter drop. Just like that, the earth gave way and Dave fell into the dark waters of the crocodile-infested river. Chaos erupted. His wife, Jane, also a doctor, immediately scrambled down the collapsing bank, desperate to pull him out. In that moment, adrenaline and love took over. She grabbed his arm, holding on tight, but the ground beneath her began to slip too. She was falling, and that's when Dave made his final decision. He let go. He knew what was coming. He knew if he held on, he'd pull her down with him, down into the water where something ancient and merciless waited. Within seconds, he was gone, dragged under, taken. The crocodile, nearly 5 meters long, a modern-day dinosaur, had been waiting. One bite, one pull. That's all it took. Back on the bank, Jane screamed for help. Their 3 young sons, aged 7, 5, and just 2, had no idea their lives had changed forever. Rescue teams were dispatched immediately. Search crews combed the murky waters, helicopters flew overhead, and wildlife rangers tracked every ripple in the river. Hours passed, then days. Eventually, a crocodile was captured, and inside, they found human remains, believed to be Dave's. Formal identification was still pending, but there was little doubt. The family's grief was unimaginable. But through it, Jane found the strength to speak about what had happened. Not for attention, but so the world would understand the kind of man Dave was. A protector, a father, a hero. He didn't die fishing. He wasn't taking a foolish risk. He was walking with his family, doing everything right. And when everything went wrong, he made the ultimate sacrifice. His sister-in-law, a journalist, later wrote, "His final decisive act was to let go of Jane's arm when he realized she was falling in. That single moment saved her life." She added that his children didn't witness his final moments, a small piece of consolation in an otherwise horrific tragedy. Jane described her husband as fiercely loyal, gentle, and endlessly devoted to his kids. "He saved me," she said. "His last act was to make sure I didn't die with him." As of now, a report for the coroner is being prepared. The river remains silent. The search has ended. And yet, the warning lingers, because sometimes nature doesn't give you a second chance. And even in the quietest places, on an ordinary path with your family, the earth can betray you, and the water can take everything. Treasure your loved ones, because none of us are ever as far from the jaws of death as we like to believe. The next story brings us to Samut Prakan, just outside the restless pulse of Bangkok, to a place not known for tragedy, but for spectacle. The Samut Prakan Crocodile Farm is the largest of its kind in Thailand, a surreal place where ancient predators perform for wide-eyed tourists, surrounded by fences and moats and the illusion of safety. But one Sunday afternoon, amid the sound of tour guides and clicking cameras, the line between show and horror was shattered. She arrived early. Her name was Somji Seth Bunwas, a 40-year-old woman, dressed plainly and moving quietly through the crowds. To most, she appeared like any other visitor, curious, maybe tired, but there was something different about her eyes. They didn't look around with wonder. They were searching for an exit. The pit was massive. Below it, dozens, maybe hundreds, of crocodiles lay piled in the sun, their prehistoric bodies unmoving, their eyes half-lidded in eternal suspicion. Tourists leaned over the barriers to take photos, unaware that someone nearby was about to turn the attraction into a stage for death. Without a word, Somji climbed the safety railing. There was shouting, confusion. Some thought it was a prank, maybe part of the show, but no staff moved fast enough. She leapt. Time slowed. She hit the water with a splash that echoed across the enclosure. The crocodiles stirred, sluggish and uninterested at first, until something primal flickered in their cold blood. At first, nothing happened. She surfaced, alive, and began to swim directly toward them. Some screamed for her to turn back. Others were frozen. In that moment, it became clear she wasn't there to be rescued. She had come to die. One crocodile snapped, then another. At least two closed their jaws around her body, dragging her down in a thrashing spiral of blood and foam. Tourists turned away, some weeping, others filming, unable to process what they had just seen. Somji was gone. Later that day, her family revealed the truth. She had planned this. 2 suicide notes had been left behind, and weeks earlier she had made a chilling comment to her husband. "I'll have crocodiles bite me to death." He hadn't believed her. Neither had her mother. She used to talk about jumping into the crocodile pond. I joked she'd need her ID card with her because there'd be nothing left to recognize. The words, once brushed off, now hung heavy with guilt. The autopsy confirmed what everyone feared. She died from massive trauma. Skull fractures, brain injury, likely from the first powerful strike. The Samut Prakan crocodile farm quickly released a statement insisting they had strict safety protocols and that no barrier could stop someone truly determined to die. This was only the second suicide in the farm's decades-long history, but the damage was done. By Monday, thousands of people flooded the park, not for the animals, but to stare at the place where Somji had entered the water, where life and death collided in the most brutal way imaginable. The crocodile pit had become a shrine, a morbid monument to despair, and through all of it her family mourned not just the loss, but the silence that came before it, the missed signs, the jokes made to deflect pain. The helplessness of watching someone suffer behind a smile until it's too late. This wasn't nature claiming a life. This was grief, masked as spectacle. It ended in the jaws of monsters, but it began much earlier, in isolation and unspoken anguish. Sometimes the most dangerous predators aren't in the water. They're the ones inside us. Thea's story brings us deep into the heart of Sulawesi, Indonesia, to a pearl farm nestled in the verdant hills of Minahasa, where the air hums with tropical heat and silence wraps itself around the isolated laboratory like a shroud. But what happened behind the gates of that quiet facility was anything but peaceful. Her name was Dizzy Tuu, 44 years old, a quiet woman, respected, meticulous, and deeply devoted to her work. As the head of a research lab at the Pearl Farm, she was known for her discipline and composure. She often worked alone, early, late, never afraid of the solitude. But behind the fence, just a few meters away, was Mary. Mary wasn't another lab technician. Mary was a 14-foot saltwater crocodile, illegal, massive, and known to everyone on the property. Why it was there, how it had come to live in a pit near the lab, no one really talked about anymore. Some said it was once a pet, others that it was kept for prestige, a living monster that gave the farm an edge of mystery. But to Dizzy, Mary was just part of the background. Until the morning, everything changed. It was Friday. A few workers arrived just after sunrise, expecting a normal shift. But what they found instead would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Dizzy was gone. At first, they assumed she hadn't shown up, but then they noticed something near the edge of the crocodile's enclosure. A shoe, a streak of blood, and just beyond the waterline, a body, what was left of her. The reptile had torn through Dizzy's abdomen, consumed one of her hands, and left her body mangled beyond recognition. Police and conservation officers were called immediately. No one could understand how it had happened. There were no cameras, no witnesses, but the signs pointed to one terrible conclusion. Dizzy had fallen in. Whether she was feeding Mary or cleaning near the edge, or simply slipped, no one knows. But what is certain is that once she hit the ground inside the pit, there was no way out. The predator did what predators do. The rescue team, dozens strong, arrived days later to remove Mary from the site. It took over 3 hours, involving soldiers, conservation officers, and tranquilizers strong enough to fell an elephant. When the massive creature was finally subdued, its mouth was sealed shut with thick bands. Some believed Dizzy's remains were still inside it. Mary had lived in that pit for years, illegal, unregulated, untouched. Now it would be transferred to a conservation facility, but it had already claimed a life. A scientist, a daughter, a woman who went to work that day expecting to go home. She never did. Authorities say the investigation is ongoing, but behind the headlines and cold reports, there's a deeper unease. A predator had lived among them, growing stronger in silence. A creature from another era, fed and forgotten, until it reminded everyone of what it truly was. In the end, Dizzy's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a warning. That no matter how long a monster is caged, instinct always waits, and sometimes all it takes is one step too close. In the heart of Costa Rica's lush Guanacaste region, where rivers wind through thick forest and the sounds of wildlife echo through the air, a small town is grieving the loss of one of its own. Jesus Chucho Alberto Lopez Ortiz, just 29 years old, was more than a footballer. He was a brother, a son, a husband, and a local hero on the pitch for Deportivo Rio Canas, the town's beloved soccer club. On Saturday, July 30th, what began as a casual day by the water turned into something no one could have imagined. Chucho and a group of friends had gathered near the Canas River, a wide and winding body of water known for its natural beauty, and for something else, something far more dangerous. Beneath its calm surface lived crocodiles, massive territorial reptiles that have long called the area home. Despite the risks, Chucho, described by many as outgoing and fearless, climbed onto the local bridge and leapt into the river. Witnesses said the splash had barely settled when a dark shape moved through the current. A crocodile, large and fast, closing in. In seconds, the water turned red. The people on shore could only watch in horror as the creature dragged Chucho beneath the surface. A video later surfaced online, showing the crocodile swimming down the river, Chucho's body still clutched in its jaws. The footage spread quickly, too quickly. His team, still reeling from the news, pleaded with the public to respect the family's grief. "Please do not upload videos of what happened," the club wrote. "There are children, a mother, a father, brothers, and Jesus' wife who deserve respect." Local authorities were called to the scene. In order to recover Chucho's body, police were forced to shoot and kill the crocodile, according to the Costa Rican Red Cross. What followed was an outpouring of sorrow that swept across the country. On Wednesday, in the town of Santa Cruz, over 1,000 mourners filled the streets for Chucho's funeral procession. Teammates in uniform carried his photo through the crowd. Locals stood in silence as the community came together, not just in grief, but in love. "Today we said goodbye to you, Chucho," his club posted online. "You were not alone. Your family, your friends, and your country were with you." Costa Rica, a land rich with wildlife, is home to the American crocodile, a species known both for its size and unpredictability. While attacks are rare, they are never forgotten. And this one, more than most, has left a hole in a small community, one that won't soon heal. But in the memories of teammates, the echoes of stadium cheers, and the hearts of a grieving family, Jesus Lopez Ortiz, Chucho, will be remembered not for how he died, but for how he lived, as a teammate, a brother, a dreamer, and a beloved son of Costa Rica. It was meant to be the expedition of a lifetime, an untamed voyage through the heart of Central Africa, navigating the unknown white waters of the continent's vast and wild river systems. For 35-year-old South African kayaker and river guide Henry Coetzee, this journey was not just about exploration, but about pushing the limits of human endurance and courage. He had spent his life chasing the world's wildest rivers. But on December 7th, 2010, that passion claimed his life. Coetzee was leading a team of American kayakers, Ben Stooksbury and Chris Korbelik, down a remote stretch of the Lukuga River, a tributary of the Congo, when tragedy struck. Without warning, a crocodile exploded from the water and snatched Coetzee from his kayak. In an instant, he vanished beneath the surface, taken by a predator lurking in the depths. His teammates, stunned and helpless, paddled frantically to shore. There was nothing they could do, no chance to recover his body, just the silence of the river and the raw terror of what they had witnessed. The team made contact with villagers who helped them reach the International Rescue Committee. From there, they were evacuated to Kalemie, a small town in the Democratic Republic of Congo, 150 kilometers from the scene. Though physically unharmed, both men were in deep shock. Henry Coetzee was not a thrill-seeker in the typical sense. Born in Ottosdal in South Africa's northwest province and raised in Centurion, Pretoria, he had long traded comfort for purpose. His life was marked not by what he owned, but by where he went, and why. He lived simply, often with only books for company, and cared little for accolades or attention. He had run some of the world's most formidable rivers, including a solo journey down a 200-kilometer section of the Congo, and a daring descent through the Murchison Falls stretch of the Nile. In 2004, he had completed the first-ever source-to-sea expedition of the White Nile. He had been living in Uganda prior to the Great Lakes expedition, which began in October 2010. The team, which originally included Jesse Coombs and Darren McQuoid, aimed to complete the journey by Christmas. Their route circled the Great Lakes region, documenting the wild waters few had dared to touch. Just days before his death, Hendry wrote what would be his final blog post. It reflected his deep understanding of the risks he faced, but also his profound sense of purpose. Too often, when trying something no one has ever done, there are only three likely outcomes: success, quitting, or serious injury and beyond, he wrote. The difference in the three are often forces outside of your control, but this is the nature of the beast: risk. He signed off with a sentence that now echoes with haunting finality. We stood precariously on an unknown slope deep in the heart of Africa. For once my mind and heart agreed I would never live a better day. His mother, Marie Neiman, described him not just as an adventurer, but as a humble and kind soul. Wherever he went, he just sowed a bit of who he was, she said tearfully. He was just awesome. A memorial for Hendry will be held in Centurion on January 28th. Though he is gone, his legacy lives on, not just in his daring, but in the quiet humility with which he lived. As his longtime friend and sponsor, Celliers Kruger, said, Hendry was without doubt one of the greatest river explorers of our time, but more than that, he was the most humble of them all. His quest for the best day ever was relentless, and in the wild rivers of Africa he may have found it.